For over a century, the origins of India's Vedic culture and the Sanskrit language have been at the center of an intense historical debate. One prominent theory claimed that light-skinned northern nomads launched a violent conquest of the subcontinent, using horses and chariots to overwhelm the indigenous population. A contrasting theory argued that Vedic culture was an entirely local development, evolving within the Indian subcontinent without any significant outside migration. This impasse lasted for decades because the archaeological record in the Northwest goes quiet right after the Bronze Age, leaving a gap in the physical evidence. Because the ruins provided no clear answers, the history of this era was often shaped more by political ideology than hard data. Following the collapse of the Indus Valley Civilization around 1900 BCE, its major urban centers were abandoned and the population dispersed. In 2019, a landmark study bypassed the need for physical artifacts by sequencing 523 ancient genomes from Central and South Asia. By comparing these sequences to earlier and later populations, researchers mapped the exact movements of people across the continent. This genomic data revealed a specific sequence of events that moved the conversation beyond the limitations of the archaeological record. To understand this transition, researchers first had to establish the genetic baseline for the Indus Valley Civilization at its height. This chart shows the genetic makeup of these mature Indus Valley genomes. They contained zero-step DNA, consisting entirely of a mix between indigenous hunter-gatherers and Iranian-related farmers. This indicates that the civilization was a native development, with no genetic evidence of outside intervention during its prime. Then, a global climate shift, known as the 4.2 kiloyear event, brought intense regional droughts that dried up critical river systems across the Northwest. This environmental pressure caused the complex urban networks to fail, forcing people to move toward the Gangetic Plains and the south. This scattering of the population created a demographic opening in the north, precisely as a new group began to move toward the subcontinent. These groups were pastoralists from the Eurasian steppe, migrating south into Central Asia with their herds. They carried specific genetic markers associated with the Yamna and Sintashta cultures of the northern plains. As these groups entered the region, they encountered a society in the process of de-urbanization. This allowed for hybridization between the newcomers and the local populations. This steppe DNA integrated into the existing population that remained in the northern power vacuum. The genetic evidence suggests a protracted process of intermingling that was made possible by the earlier collapse of the Indus cities. The entry of this steppe DNA matches the estimated timeframe for the spread of Indo-Iranian languages into the subcontinent. This genetic shift provides a biological correlate for the era when the Rig Veda was composed and Vedic culture began to take shape. The data suggests that steppe DNA acted as a carrier for these languages, which then integrated through generations of cultural exchange rather than a single event. This ancient mixing created the two primary genetic gradients found across modern South Asia. This chart plots ancestral North Indians, who formed through the direct mixing of steppe pastoralists with the people descending from the Indus Valley. As Indus-descended groups moved further south and east, they mixed with additional indigenous hunter-gatherer populations, forming the ancestral South Indian line. Modern South Asian identity is the result of these ancient populations blending together, combining the heritage of Eurasian pastoralists with one of the world's earliest urban civilizations.